Hi, this is John Adams, the Rehab Documentation Guru, and today we're going to look at a comparison of a skilled statement by a therapist to the formula of how to document skilled services. If you've been to my course on Documentation Bootcamp, we talk about what are the essential things that we want to document for skill, and I give an ordering of how you might want to document it. So first of all, let's look at the statement. It obviously covers different CPT codes, and then we're going to look at it and see, does it fit the mold for what truly is skilled documentation? So let's start off. It says facilitated bed mobility training, including rolling right and left with min assist and supine to sit with min to mod assist, and max verbal tactile cues for sequencing with use of bed rails in order to improve patient participation. Facilitated bilateral lower extremity therex and supine and sitting to increase strength in order to improve participation in bed mobility and transfers. Facilitated static and dynamic unsupported sitting balance with emphasis on weight shifting and reaching outside of base of support to facilitate use of writing reactions and increase trunk control in order to prepare for transfers. So let's look at the formula and let's see, do we have everything that we need here? Number one, do we have the CPT code mentioned? Well, except for the word therapeutic exercise, we don't really have, or a phrase, we don't really have anything specifically stated about what is being billed. And that's important because we don't want the reviewer who's not a therapist to try to determine what is going with what. And so it's not clear from this documentation what falls under what CPT code. Then let's look at, do we have any action words that talk about what the therapist did? Well, we do. In fact, we have the same word repeated multiple times. Facilitated, facilitated, facilitated. And whenever documentation looks repetitive in nature, it can, because it's redundant, because it's repetitive, a reviewer might assume that we're doing the same thing over and over again, even though it's associated obviously with some different things. So try to make sure you mix up your action words that you use. Now let's talk about target of the action. And if you've been to my course, you know there are two main targets we're going to talk about. Number one, what is the target of the CPT code? What is the CPT code designed to do? So let's first of all look at this. Facilitated bed mobility training. I'm going to assume, just for the sake of discussion, that the therapist build therapeutic activities with this. Therapeutic activities is a code designed for general mobility training. And so this would fall under that category, but without it specifically stated as therapeutic activities, it's a little bit hard to tell. The other target would be use of terms like anatomical terms. And so anyway, we have movement. We'd have talk about really nothing anatomical. Okay, so let's go on. What about therex? This is obviously therex, and they're talking about exercising, increasing strength of the bilateral lower extremities, but it doesn't give specific muscle groups. And I'm going to assume this patient is not weak universally in the lower extremities, and that not all muscles are as important for bed mobility and transfers. So this does not really truly give the action, the target of the action. How about this one? Facilitated static and dynamic unsupported sitting balance. Now, we're going to assume, for the sake of discussion, that this is for neuromuscular reeducation. So it does give a target that could be associated with neuromuscular reed. Does it have any discussion of anatomical structures, or in this case, systems of balance that are being addressed? Well, it talks about writing reactions, so that's not bad. And some trunk control, which goes into postural control, which is also another component of neuromuscular rehab. So there's a little bit more redeeming value here, but for the most part, these statements miss the target. How about special techniques? Well, let's look at this here. Bed mobility was facilitated, training, rolling right and left, sequencing. Okay, what was the sequencing that the patient needed to work on? And can we argue that maybe a non-skilled person would be smart enough without a therapy degree to tell the person to use the bed rails to pull themselves over? Or could the patient likely be smart enough to try to use the bed rails to facilitate bed mobility? Does this really require skill? What's the skill behind it? And that's not clear. How about special techniques for exercise? Well, we have no idea here what was done for strengthening, what kind of principles of strength training the therapist was using, what kind of special techniques they had to use to facilitate the bilateral lower extremity strengthening. So that does not meet the criteria for special techniques. And then how about this? Facilitating weight shifting, balance reactions, trunk control. Okay, we don't know exactly what they did. And one thing they could have really focused on was how they facilitated different systems of balance. So the coordination of the systems of balance, like vestibular, visual, and somatosensory. So we don't really have very much in the way of special techniques for any of them. Now, response, I'm not going to worry about so much in a one progress note, because there may not have been an immediate response on that given day. And one of the responses we look at is change in function as a result of therapy, which will be documented in another section. And then evolution of care, again, you will look from note to note to determine whether or not there's been true evolution of care. And in this case, it's hard to tell just looking at this one note. So there you have it, a review of this skilled section. Does it meet the criteria? Well, frankly, no. And this is John Adamson, the Rehab Documentation Guru. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be looking for more videos coming out. And if you like these videos, please subscribe and like this video, and also consider supporting me through my GoFundMe account, which is going to help me continue to do this content and spend the time. Because as some of you know, I have 9 children and my time is definitely valuable. But I appreciate it. You take care. Bye-bye.